Dear students of class 9A and 9B, you see, look at the look at the whiteboard. Here there are some points mentioned. As per the following points, I am going to explain it. Now, revenue system. What is about the revenue system? What is about the revenue system during the Mughal period? You know, the British introduced a good system of revenues following the Mughals. You know, the Land and Revenue Minister Todormal introduced a good system of land revenue, and Akbar was inspired by the administration of Sher Shah Suri. But it is not a point of discussion of us today. But simply I gave two examples. The British adopted certain system of administration following the administration of Akbar, and Akbar also followed the same technique and method of good administration from the administration of Sher Shah Suri, and I recruited Todormal as Land and Land Revenue Minister, who was there during Sher Shah's time also. Now, what is about the land revenue system? You know, the land revenue system was such kind of system, you know, it was actually meant economic system of the country. Mughal emperor's economic system. It was the most important source of income of the state. And apart from this, money, collection of money as revenue, taxes from the peasants and farmers was done in a systematic way, not forcefully. There was no pressure on the peasants and farmers. Their income also too much high. That's why they never they would not become defaulter and always paid taxes in time. And though money, the taxes were collected and at the same time was invested on making buildings, forts, conducting wars, and for various purposes, for the welfare of the people, for the welfare of the country. So it was so important that for the proper calculation of land revenue, the Mughals introduced a good system of administration also. Todormal took 10 years to carry out detailed research in land and land revenue system and land revenue accounts. And as a result of it, he was able to introduce a good system of land and land revenue. His land revenue policy helped him to be a powerful and popular officer under the court of Sher Shah Suri as well as Akbar, because he achieved success in introducing good policy of land and land revenue system. And apart from this, during the reign of Akbar, the administration was divided into two systems, the two parts: central administration and provincial administration. And but provincial administration was dependent on, village administration was dependent on provincial administration, and but overall the king was all in all, and his decision was final. And there were different administrative departments during the reign of Akbar. In my previous class I discussed about it. And now the Mughals recruited Mansabdars. Another point, Mansabdari system. The Mughals recruited many Mansabdars. Who were Mansabdars? The Mansabdars were actually, they were, prosperous and rich people, and they were provided certain lands to look after it. That's why the Mansabdari system, in the Mansabdari system, the Mughals realized that the Mansabdar would be able to look after the lands, and hence the Mughals recruited Mansabdars from not only Iran's Mansabdar of Iran, but also from Rajputs, Sikhs, Marathas, and Afghans, and Indian Muslims. They also were appointed as Mansabdars. And Mansabdars, during the reign of Akbar, the Mansabdars played an important role. The Mansabdar Akbar held discussion with Mansabdars regarding the improvement lifestyle of peasants and farmers, and the characters of the lands, whether there was any, barren lands. The barren, he encouraged the Mansabdars to make the barren lands as a land of cultivation, and as a result of it, the revenue system during the reign of Akbar was the revenue system uh, was done. The revenue system was introduced in resemblance with such lands who later became the land for agriculture, like barren lands converted to agricultural lands. But how? By means of the efforts of the Mansabdars, and under his officers who worked under him, they were allowed to do it, to look after it. But the amount of money, whatever they spend, they were able to realize it. How? By imposing taxes on the barren lands. When it converted into a land of agriculture, they imposed taxes on it. So the revenue system was reformed under Akbar, his revenue minister Raja Todormal, and Todormal carried out careful survey of crops and the areas cultivated for a 10-year period from 1570 to 1580. And on the basis of this data and tax was fixed on each crop caps. Each province was divided into revenue circles with own schedule of revenue rates for individual crops. And so these are the important reasons resulted in poverty in otherwise prosperous Mughal Empire. Decided to remove their poverty, because some people also were poor. They had no capability of paying taxes and revenue, because little acres of lands were there in their hands, and but a good system was there in the country. There was no money lender. There was no system of taking them under their clutches by providing loan and by taking away their lands. There was no system in the country during the reign of the Mughals, especially when Akbar was there. So the Mughal emperors and their Mansabdars spent a great deal of their income or salaries and goods. Although peasants and farmers, artisans benefited from it, but the scale of revenue collection left very little for investment in the hands of peasants and artisans. Hence, they could not buy new tools to increase productivity. Due to this, poorest among them lived from hand to mouth, and they had no capability of earning better money. They had no chance to convince the others because of their poverty. But during the time of other Mughal, in Akbar's reign, Zagir system also were carefully assessed, so that their revenues were roughly equal to the salary of the Mansabdar, because Akbar introduced a policy of neutrality. His attitude towards all people was neutral, impartial. That's why Akbar introduced a system of equality and system of law, equality before law, and ultimately this created shortage of zagirs, As a result, many Zagindars tried to extract as much revenue as possible while they had a Zagir. In this way, the the well established, in this way, the well established and efficient Mansabdari system collapsed, and ultimately this gave rise to the peasant revolts against the Mughal emperors in the later decade, gave a rise to the peasant revolts against the Mughal emperors, and collapse of the Mansabdari system. How? Because by the time of Aurangzeb, the Mansabdari system became unmanageable as corruption and the number of advocating Mansabdari increased. So inequality in Mansabdars. During Shah Jahan's reign, the highest rank of Mansabdar made only a very little amount of, Mansab of their code, and Mansabdars received a very little amount of revenue, were able to collect revenue, a very little amount. Therefore, the dissatisfied Mansabdari challenged the authority of the emperor. So, increase in regional powers. Another point, the extremely powerful elite group of Mughal Empire, and ultimately they carved out their individual regional states such as Hyderabad and Ayodhya. And afterwards, all these factors combined with the coming weak Mughal rulers led to the decline of the Mughal Empire, but it was the last phase of the Mughal rule. Now it is not our part of lesson. Now king's religion. King was tolerant. The Mughal rulers basically were tolerant, especially Akbar. And during the time of Aurangzeb, the policy of religion was totally changed, and hence Aurangzeb's reign had become very much weak due to wrong policy of religion, wrong religious policy. Aurangzeb weakened the national integrity and sovereignty of his empire. Ultimately, there was protest. There were grievances against the Mughal ruler Aurangzeb everywhere. All the peasants and farmers, they started organizing revolts. The Indian regional kingdoms, they raised hue and cry against Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, and ultimately it paved the way of disintegration of that vast kingdom, vast empire, the Mughal Empire. And then Mughals and the Rajputs. The Mughals and the Rajputs. The Rajputs were the warrior class people. It was due to the effort of Akbar. For the first time, the Mughals realized that Rajputs should be utilized properly and effectively, because they were warrior class people, and they could be utilized as weapon of the empire. Ultimately, Akbar felt that the Rajputs were not only warrior class people, but they were adamant in their nature. That's why initially Akbar declared war against some Rajput rulers, and ultimately they were defeated by Akbar. Akbar proved his superiority and proved Rajputs inferior to him. And then Akbar also realized that by defeating the Rajputs, Rajputs should not be made his enemies, but at the same time they must be made his friends. And hence, after defeating the Rajputs, Akbar adopted a policy of matrimonial alliance, and then he approached the king of Ambar he approached the hand for his marriage. He approached the hand of the daughter of king of Ambar for his marriage, and ultimately the king of Ambar gave his daughter's hand for Akbar, and Akbar ultimately married his daughter Jodha Bai. So by following or by adopting the policy of matrimony, Akbar was able to establish a good relations with the Rajputs, and ultimately the Rajputs also were appointed in many important posts in the administration of Akbar, in the revenue department, in the in the finance department, revenue department, finance department, and in other important posts. Akbar appointed the Rajputs. At the same time, he also appointed so many Rajputs in his army, and also gave them responsible posts. Ultimately, they were able to shoulder the responsibilities assigned for them by the Emperor Akbar. So, during the time of Akbar, the relationship between the Rajputs and Akbar was strengthened, and it also helped Akbar to extend his empire throughout our country, India, and he was able to establish law and order strongly, and Mughal Empire reached to its highest extent during the reign of Akbar. Up to this, my dear student, next day, the remaining part. Thank you.